Okay, so next up we have SightlessKombat. And SightlessKombat is an accessibility consultant and a gamer without sight. So first and foremost, hello, it's nice to see you. And
hello. Hopefully you can all see and hear me. If you can't, then please feel free to let me know, regardless of the reasoning, because normally that's amusing. Am I audible? I should be.
Yes, yep, we are, yep, and we can see your slides as well.
Cool. Oh, cool. I was just making sure. So yes, hello. I am SightlessKombat, accessibility consultant and gamer without sight from the UK. I don't just work in video games, though my primary focus is around gaming a lot of the time. And in terms of when I say I'm a gamer without sight, a lot of people would say, "Oh, you're blind, aren't you?" Well, yes, the answer is technically that's correct. But I prefer the term gamer without sight, and I use that because legal blindness, often just shortened to being blind, can and often does include usable and or residual vision, which I've never had. So I've never had any sight whatsoever. Thank you so much for inviting me, by the way, to this. I really, really appreciate it. As by way of a description, I am a white male with late 20s, with just not much sub or like facial hair or anything. I'm wearing my cap with my logo on it, which is an eye with a pair of crossed swords going through it from the top down. And I'm wearing a Space Invaders t-shirt with an sort of accessibility badge on it as well, like a pin badge that sort of shows various forms of accessibility kind of going on as well. And behind me, if I turn slightly, there you go, you can see it. Hopefully, well, for those of you who can see it, I have a bunch of memorabilia on the wall behind me, including a Lancer from Gears of War 4, the replica Lancer 1-to-1 scale, as well as numerous pop vinyls and other figures. And we might come onto why those are relevant later. I'm here today to discuss briefly accessibility in gaming. The art of the possible is the title of the presentation. But I think what we need to do first is show how accessibility in action is a good thing to show off always with these things. So I put together a short demo reel, a very short demo reel that you can watch, and that shows off just how things work in practice, really. And actually, I realise I may have to rejoin the meeting. Oh no, there we go. One. It's all right. So if you could roll the video for me on your end, and I will post a link in the chat afterwards to a stereo equivalent as well. So you'll be missing the stereo part of this, but you'll get the rest of it as well. So hopefully that will be enlightening and useful.
Okay, I'll play the recording.
Thank you.
Campaign, item 1 of 4. Unravel the mysteries of Zeta Halo. Multiplayer, item 2 of 4. Play matches against other online players. Academy, item 3 of 4. Begin your own legend, Spartan. Custom game, item 4 of 4. Create a local or online match with community content.
The bomb's about to go off. Pressure's on.
Northeast.
Okay. Wait, northeast or northeast?
Just northeast.
Northeast. Yep.
And another 4 steps. And then 2 steps to your right. And it's behind you.
Yep.
You are at the wheel.
That was smooth.
Behind you.
Oh, no. All right, now, watch the ultimate. Watch the ultimate. Oh, my God. Yeah, so I've put the link in the chat as well to the stereo version of that video, and you saw a lot of things there in terms of different versions of accessibility, varying degrees of it as well, because not all games are accessible. A lot of games, in fact, are not accessible at all as a gamer without sight, which is a real problem. even though games have been progressing. So we saw Halo Infinite there with narrated menus and user interface, which is a big thing as well. So essentially where the menus speak as you move through them, and the tooltips and things read, for instance. So all of that, having all of that accessible so you can set games up yourself is brilliant. But of course, narrated menus aren't everything. So then we moved on to The Last of Us 2 with Navigation and Traversal. So in The Last of Us 2, the big sort of seminal game for accessibility over the past couple of years, that has so many accessibility features and can be played start to finish without needing any sighted assistance. I personally have beaten it in separate runs on both Grounded, which is the hardest difficulty the game has to offer, and Permadeath, where you die and you get set back to a certain point, specifically per chapter. On the easiest difficulty was the way I had it set up. But The Last of Us 2 has a navigation and traversal feature, much like a few other games like Dead Space, where if you press a button, it will turn your camera towards the direction you need to go. But the game has built-in pathfinding, so it will actually lead you through a way that actually gets you to your objective, rather than pointing you at it through a window across the street, which Gears of War 1 did do one time when I tried to follow the objective via that game's own equivalent of the system. But Last of Us 2, not that the system is perfect, but it works very, very well, as a full feature. In terms of, the next part we saw auto-aiming, lock-on aim, as they call it in Last of Us 2, with a sound cue attached so that you could tell what part of an enemy you were aiming at, so the head, the center of mass, or the legs. Now, there are certain reasons why you want to aim for parts, different areas of an enemy as well, but as you saw, I went for the headshot, and I got it, because the game will keep you locked on, and it will, allow you to hear where you're aiming, even if it's a long-distance shot, like that one, might have been, you don't necessarily need to know. As long as you get the kill, it's fine. And as long as the game allows you to do it without needing assistance, that's fine. Then we moved into Gears 5, which actually has a feature that I worked on called Navigation Ping Escape Mode, officially and just shortened to Escape Ping in playing circles. I had the opportunity to consult with the Coalition, the team behind the game, on that one. And that essentially allows you to follow tiles, follow a little audio cue, rather than having to press a button and constantly turn your camera, automatically. You instead follow the path yourself. Now, the Coalition did acknowledge the faults in that feature in an article they published, which I don't have to hand, unfortunately, but I can link it in the chat in a minute. But the point is, the feature allowed me and many other gamers outside to actually play this mode that had previously been completely off limits without getting sighted assistance. And that is a big thing. If you can't get sighted assistance, then you might as well be stuck sometimes, which is a real shame. Next game was Sea of Thieves. After that, Sea of Thieves is a great teamwork game whereby you're in a pirate sandbox and you're running around with other players. You're three other players, up to three other players, depending on what ship you choose to sail in. Unfortunately, there is no navigation accessibility or aiming accessibility in that game. So what you saw was actually one of my crew members guiding me via steps. So they were saying, 4 steps forward, 10 to your right, that kind of thing. But there was a feature in the background there called compass narration, or nautical narration, they termed it in the blog post. That was actually added really recently, but that means that, you can say turn northeast, turn west, turn southeast, whatever, and you can then turn there with the game just telling you which direction you're facing. That also works for the ship itself. So if, say, we're setting sail from an island and we need to go east and we're currently facing north, my crew then doesn't have to tell me when to straighten out unless they want to, which is, on them. So then I would enable that feature via a button press when I'm on the wheel, and it would say north, and then I would turn until we're hearing east, and then stop that feature from speaking so it doesn't get too annoying. And finally, you saw me on stream, once again, playing Killer Instinct, which was a very, very fun stream to do, because that game is a fighting game. So it's, 1v1, you're in a stereo playing field, but the key thing is the consistent sound design. So I could tell when my opponent was attacking me, I could block that attack and then counter at exactly the right time. And the game gives you the feedback of shadow counter when you get that successful, parry attempt, as it were. And the audio sort of justifies, it shows what happened essentially, and you can work that out as you play, which is why we were both laughing, because it was so ridiculous, because I was playing against a fellow gamer without sight, And what I did in that quick clip is very difficult to do that quickly and that situationally. So yeah, and there's a lot of other things we could talk about. Actually, one final thing I will show you that I didn't get to show in that reel was that when you need sighted assistance, sometimes you have to get it remotely. So you can do it via things like Copilot on the Xbox One. It's a platform level feature that allows two controllers to simultaneously act as one, which is amazing. I've completed games like Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, Titanfall 2, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and a number of others with that system. But on consoles and platforms where Copilot doesn't exist, you have things like this. I've lifted it into shot. It's a small rectangular box with some connectors on the back and also a few connectors on the front and a couple of buttons on the top. This is the Titan 2 from Console Tuner, a very interesting piece of kit that allows two controllers to connect physically and act as one. But the cool thing about it is on the back, there's a lead to connect to your console of choice. So your PS5, your Xbox Series X, your PC, whatever you choose. And on the like next to that directly is a lead that connects it into your PC. Using software like Parsec, a piece of remote kit that allows you to, it's mostly designed for online gaming and games, 4-player games from arcade titles, that kind of thing, or remote work. But we managed to put it together so that we could actually use the Titan 2, so people halfway around the world, yes, in the United States, can actually control my game as well on my own terms. So we've been playing Spider-Man, Dead Space 2, Control, so many things, so many games that we've played like that. Ideally, you wouldn't have to play like that at all, but when needs must, when a game is old enough that it doesn't have accessibility, or even when a game is newer and it still doesn't have the accessibility, if you can enlist the right people, then you can definitely have that work in your favor if you can get the sighted assistants to set up the software in the first place. And I do see there's a bunch of questions in the chat. I mean, also as well, I should point out that I'm an Xbox ambassador, Xbox Ambassador's Play Host, Community Champion, and Xbox MVP. But that doesn't just mean I play Xbox games. I do stream other stuff as well on my channel. I'm going to actually put my virtual business card in the chat as well. Hold on, let me quickly do that. And my email is going to be in there as well. So if I hope this works. It's not actually worked. Why has that not worked? There we go. If it didn't work before, it should have worked now.
Yeah, we can see that.
There you go. Yeah. So I know there's a lot of questions in the chat. Do you want to ask any, Phil, before we carry on?
I do have a question.
It's kind of been rapid fire, but this is only a 15-minute talk, so there's a lot to cover.
It has been fantastic. I'm blown away. I had the pleasure of meeting yesterday and seeing all of this, and I'm still blown away seeing it the second time. So, yeah, it's so good. We do have some questions in the chat. If you could kind of take a look at those maybe after.
Recently persuaded by. Sorry, I'm reading this manually. So for those of you wondering why I'm taking a while. Got persuaded by Red Dead Redemption. So I've played. If you're talking about the original Red Dead Redemption, I actually played through that myself, but I needed sighted assistance constantly for it. But it depends on how much vision you have. That's the key thing. If you have enough vision, games can be fine, or games can be workable, as is illustrated by Steve Saylor, who is a well-known accessibility consultant and figure in the industry. He describes himself as a blind gamer. Hence, a lot of people have asked me to talk to him or us to sort of, chat to each other to share perspectives, when in fact our ways of gaming are totally different because, we both have different degrees of vision. Red Dead Redemption to me wasn't accessible at all, but I really enjoyed the experience. And that's how, that's a lot of games really. If you enjoy the experience, that's worth the effort to have the game be accessible in one form or another, whether that's getting assistance, whether that's working around it with optical character recognition or OCR, whether that's using mods on PC, whether that's even getting audio described cutscenes together, as I've done with the Transcribing Games project, with the amazing help of Janissary and a bunch of collaborators throughout the world. And also, whether that's been involved with things like Watch Dogs Legion. I did the audio description for the Tipping Point cinematic trailer last year, thanks to Ubisoft for letting me do that. And that was amazing to do. Being able to record a script and, put it together was fantastic, not just as an experience, but also, because then I can say, I, as a gamer without sight, with no sight at all, was able to do the audio description rather than having to be cited to do it, if that makes sense. So that was a lot of fun. Let me just see if there's any other.
Unfortunately, Ben, I think we're going to have to stop there. I'm so sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. It's fine. And yeah, if you ever mention me on Twitter or pop into my chat as well, feel free to just address me by my handle. I go by SightlessKombat or SK, any of those three. So if you, it's usually I've said that after, you know, just for ease of use and consistency. But if you've seen me here and you want to come and watch my streams, ask questions, feel free, and I will happily answer what I can. All my information is in the chat. But thank you so much for inviting me along. I really, really appreciate it. And remember, it's not just the games that need to be accessible, it's everything about the game. So the marketing, the trailers, the images you're posting, the figures, all of that. Because figures can lead to greater character, you know, understanding of characters, immersion, all of that stuff. There's so many points of discussion that I would love to share with all of you, but of course we don't have much time. So, but thank you so much for inviting me here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I feel so bad stopping this talk. It's or any of the talks, because we could easily fill the entire webinar
of course,
with any
I totally
single one. But thank you so much.